Welcome, everyone. I am Jane Hutanen, Focal Point Coaching and Training, and I've been doing this for my own business for 10 years now, coaching and providing training for business owners, their teams, executives, and this is the one topic that I talk about the most. I have delivered, I can't even count how many workshops, how many times in one-on-one sessions I've worked with clients. I have a meeting later today, and we're talking about this with a client. So time management, productivity is the number one thing that I see as a challenge for people, because even when you get good at it, you always feel like you can still get better, right? As a quick reminder, last week, for those of you who were there, Pete talked about multitasking and distractions, how you can't actually work on two things at the same time. It's actually task switching, how that uses a lot of energy. Pete went into some detail on, kind of what's going in the brain. Not too much detail, not super technical, but enough detail to help you understand what's happening in your brain and how the always being on can actually lower your IQ, and how you waste time when you're switching between tasks. And so that flows in today. If you missed last week's session with Pete, there is a recording available. So reach out to Kelly. She'll be able to set you up with the recording. And so I'm going to talk about how do we take some of the concepts that Pete talked about, how do we apply it so that you can actually get better at time management at work. And the first thing is to launch a poll. All right. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how effective are you at managing your time? 1 is you are terrible. 10 is I am a master. And you can be any number in between. I have seen 1s and 2s. I have seen 9s. I've never seen a 10, because the person who gave a 9 said, I know I could always get a bit better. And generally, I see numbers somewhere in between. So just vote on that, and we'll see a couple more people. One more. All righty. And I will share the results. All right. So what do we, if everyone can see that, you should be able to see that. We have one person gives a 4, 2 people said 5, 3 said 6, 3 said 7, 2 said 8. Sorry, someone coming in the room there. And no one gave a 9 or a 10. Okay, so we have a nice little bell curve there, with most of the responses about in the middle. So definitely showing that everyone recognizes they have some ability to manage their time. Clearly, you haven't gotten to this point in your life, in your career, without managing your tasks and your priorities at least somewhat effectively, but there's always some opportunity and room for growth. So thank you for that. I'm going to knock that down. Can people put in the chat box, what is one of your biggest time wasters? Just I'm going to open up the chat box. Just share whether, what distracts you, what prevents you from doing the work that you should be doing. So email, social media, distractors, Slack messages, news on my cell phone, taking on too many things, interruptions, unforeseen interruptions, meetings, Slack messages. So there's a good long list. These are typical of what I see whenever I ask this question. Social media, email, things at the top, the unplanned, there's procrastination, email, social media. Yeah, these are the things that often get in the way. In-person meetings. Yeah, I used to work a corporate job, and I swear I spent 8 hours in meetings. And it's like, when am I supposed to do my work? Because the meetings weren't always effective, right? Sometime last year in the peer group, I did an effective meetings topic, and there are a lot of things there that I wish I had known in my corporate job. So a lot of things can distract you. You might start the day with, okay, I've got these 3 important things I need to get done, and then life happens and people get, you get off track, right? And very quickly your day can get derailed. Pete has talked about this in the past. So meetings and emails, exactly. Here's another take on what some typical time wasters are. And thank you, Pete, for sharing this. Lack of priorities, waiting for inspiration, doing everything by yourself, worrying about what people will say, not living your life, the fear of failure, complaining, unfinished tasks, so they can consume your energy, trying to please everyone, comparing yourself to others, repeating the same mistakes, perfectionism. Do any of those resonate with you? Because this is a different look at we often look at our time wasters as the specific things. Oh, I keep getting emails that I need to answer, or I feel I need to answer. I keep getting, pulled into meetings. People stop by my desk and ask me questions, Slack messages, etc. This is a different take because a lot of this is more internal. This is things about me that are getting in my way. And I'm going to be talking a bit more about some of that internal stuff. Pete talked about it last week, how bit about recognizing what your internal impulses are. So, the fear of failure. I don't do something because what if I don't do a good enough job? What if I don't, succeed at it? And that wastes your time because you're worrying about whether or not you should do something versus just going ahead and doing it. Comparing yourself to others. Well, I'll never be good enough. Doing everything by yourself, not delegating. That's wasting your time. Okay, so you'll get these slides as a follow-up after, so you can see these in more detail. I'd like you to, I encourage you to look at this and think about where some of these things might be happening in your life and getting in your way of getting the important things done. So does any of this sound familiar? You don't have enough time to get everything done. You feel stressed by your to-do list. You might feel too much stress. And we know that too much stress can impact your health, lower your resistance to disease. You don't sleep well. It affects your relationships, can lead to dysfunctional behaviors. The stress makes you less productive, which makes your to-do list longer, which leads to more stress. And so there's a very negative cycle that can happen. And I don't know about you, but does your to-do list look anything like this? It simply says so many things. You've got so many things on your to-do list that you can't write them down. You don't know where to start. The first thing to put on your to-do list would be to write a to-do list. But you see other people getting lots of stuff done and it's like, I just don't know how to do this. So that's what we're here for today. We're going to talk about myths and mental barriers to time management, the number one principle of time management, take you through 4 keys to time management success, and the top 3 tactics to avoid procrastination. And so I saw on the chat list, I think, Sam, you had mentioned procrastination is a time waster. So let's talk about the myths. The first myth is there's actually no such thing as time management. Time moves at the same rate all the time. You can't actually manage time as it happens. All you can manage is what you do in the time you have available. You can manage your attention to the task, focusing, and how you approach tasks. You can manage yourself and how you plan and how you approach your work. So I'm going to keep using the phrase time management because that's what people recognize, but it's really more about how do you manage yourself and your ability to get work done. So it's more, work management, task management, as opposed to time management. So productivity is a good word to use as well. So things that get in the way, some of the mental barriers to good time management. First one, negative mental programming. So quite often as we grow up, we might hear from our parents or our teachers that we're messy, we're sloppy, we hand in things late, we don't finish what we started, we're disorganized, we don't know how to plan, we don't know how to set goals. And we hear these messages throughout our life, and they become self-limiting beliefs as we're adults. And we believe that we cannot be good at time management, that we might be able to do it sometimes, but we can't do it consistently, that we're born this way. But the reality is bad time management habits can be replaced with good time management habits. They're skills that are learnable. And so what we want to do today is help you to hopefully unlearn some of your bad habits, learn some good ones. A lot of what I'm going to be sharing is from much longer programs. So I've taken the elements that resonate the most when I talk about time management with people. Not everything will apply to everyone. Some things you'll look at and go, that wouldn't work for me. That's fine. As long as you get one or two things out of today that you say, okay, I'm going to try this one thing or these two things and see how they work. And then you might try something else. So you need to build habits. When it comes to habit change, you need to start small and build in the repetition until something moves into, Pete, what's the embedded, the words escaped me.
Subconscious.
So it gets it in, it's the embedded, the routine that, it's like driving the car, right? Because it's in your subconscious. You don't have to think about it anymore. It becomes a habit and it's just something you do. And then you can try something new. All right. So we're going to break through all those time management barriers that you might have in your mind. Number one principle of time management is the things that matter most must never be at the mercy of the things that matter least. Goethe said this many, many, many years ago, and I shared this last time in the prioritization. We talked about prioritization, because when it comes down to it, you don't want to manage time. You want to manage what you are able to accomplish the things that are most important to you. And so this is a theme that's going to go through what we talk about today. 4 keys for time management success. Number 1 is your calendar and how you use your calendar. So your calendar can be the most helpful tool you use, and whether it's a paper calendar or a virtual calendar, it can be so much more than just a calendar. When you think about your calendar and managing your time, I encourage you to think about scheduling time in your calendar for yourself first, making sure you have time for exercise, knowing, your regular getting up in the morning and going to bed at night, sleep time, so you're getting enough sleep. Do you have relaxation in the evenings, weekends, hobbies, breaks? When you think of your full 24 hours a day calendar, 7 days a week, when are the times that are for you? When do you have family commitments and family things you want to do? And what is your business work time? Now, when you work for someone else, you generally have some set hours. Sometimes there's, flexibility, but making sure you've got that time carved out. When you work for yourself, like I do, I could easily say, I could work on my business 24/7. I could do that and I would keep myself busy, but I know that's not healthy. So I need to make sure I have boundaries around my business work time and then the time for me, time for family, and everything else. So looking at your calendar and saying, these are my work hours, these are the times I'm going to work on key priorities, can be extremely helpful for you to get those done. The next thing is to think about your calendars more than just a list of what meetings you have to do and when you have to do them. So thinking about your calendar as a way to capture what your goals are, what your priorities and your task list is, and building that in to your calendar. So I have a paper calendar, which has my meetings, but it also has what are the things I must do that day? What are the things I need to do sometime this week? And when I have something I must do on a day, I block out time. For example, Friday, it was work on the Tech Connect slides for today. I had time in my calendar, and that was a meeting with myself to do that work. And if I had had someone request a meeting at that time, I have 2 choices. I can say, yes, I'm available, and then I move the meeting with myself to another time. I don't just cancel it. I move that meeting with myself to another time. Or I can say, I'm sorry, I'm not available at 2:00. I have another meeting. They don't need to know it's with myself, but I have another meeting. Are you available at 3 or are you available at 1? And quite often they go, oh yeah, I can meet another time. I was just throwing that out there. So protecting in your calendar the time when you are going to work on your tasks. We've talked before about figuring out when is a good time, when is your brain and your energy level wired to do good work, and carving out some time. And I realize not everyone has full control over when they can do that. But even if you can do it a few days a week where you're carving out true work time, that can be helpful. And another tip in your calendar is to schedule in your calendar when you are going to go through email and when you're going to return phone calls, and you don't look at it during the rest of the day. In some professions, some roles, this is not possible. You need to be more on with your email and phone calls. But even trying it twice a day, from 11 to 11:30 and 4 to 4:30, frees you up in those other times to focus on other things. Okay. Key number 2 is setting priorities. We talked a lot about this last month. If you missed it, you can go back and see the recording. So I'm not going to review all of that today because I said a lot more about it last time. Excuse me. But basically, setting priorities, it's asking, what is the most valuable use of my time right now? Figuring out what is the one thing that would most help you accomplish your goals at that time, and then doing that thing. Okay. Key number 3 is planning. It does, to truly manage your time and make sure you're accomplishing your tasks, you do need to plan. I'm going to walk you through the planning process that I use myself every year, every quarter, month, week, day. I share this with my clients. For some of them, it works. For some of them, it doesn't work. So you may find that it doesn't work for you. That's fine. If there are some steps in this process that will help you, then please give this a try. So walk you through it, you're going to go, oh, that sounds hard and complicated. The reality is it's not that hard and complicated once you build the habit. It takes a few hours once a year to do your plan for the year. And then I spend no more than 5 or 10 minutes a week at the most working through this process. So I know what I need to do every day. So let me walk you through it. The beginning this is where there's the couple of, it might be 2 to 3 hours. It might be half a day. Some people spend a day, depends on what your role is. But setting what your annual goals are. So for 2023, I want a certain amount of revenue. That means I need a certain number of clients. For me, I want to do a certain amount of coaching. I want to do a certain amount of corporate training. I have certain goals. One of my goals is the number of people who I help in some way, whether it's through coaching or training. So I set what those goals are. And then I split that up into quarterly milestones. So a goal might be, I want to earn $100,000 revenue for the year in my business. I'm just going to pick a number that the math is easy to do on. Quarterly milestones means in the first quarter, I probably need to earn, that would be 25,000 in the second quarter, another 25. In the third, another 25. In the fourth quarter, another 25. Or it might be, I want to, I want to do a talk in at some big conference in the fall. So the milestone in quarter 1 is I need to have researched and identified opportunities. The milestone in quarter 2, we'll have different milestones. So this works when you're working for someone else, because you will be told what accomplishments you need to achieve throughout the year. You will know what your goals are. You know what the work is. You can break that down into quarterly milestones. Make sure your management is aligned with what needs to happen quarter by quarter. This is the biggest chunk of work, which you do at the beginning of the year. The next step is at the beginning of each quarter. This exercise takes about 10 minutes. What are the actual tasks you need to accomplish month by month? Still at a fairly high level. So if I need in quarter 1 to have identified a bunch of speaking opportunities, in January, it's research. In February, reach out to people I might know who might have a connection with an association, etc. So figuring out at the beginning of the quarter, what do I need to do in January? What do I need to do in February? What do I need to do in March? At the beginning of the second quarter, you take those Q2 milestones and figure out what you need to do month by month. At the beginning of the month, at the beginning of January, it's like, I told myself I need to do these things in January. What specifically do I need to do week by week? Again, once you get in the habit, this takes 5 to 10 minutes. I never spend more than about 5 to 10 minutes on a weekly basis in figuring out what my task list is at the beginning of each week. So the week of January 2nd, I had these things. I'm going to do this Monday, this Tuesday, this Wednesday, this Thursday, this Friday. As I said, this does sound like it could be really onerous. And when I was first doing it, it took a while to build the habit. But once you build the habit and once you connect it with your calendar, and as I have blocked out times, it can be really helpful to make it easy for you every day to know, oh yeah, this is what I need to do today. I do a quick check, nothing's changed because I know priorities change. Life happens. But to do a quick check and, okay, I need to move some things around. Sometimes that will happen. And as I said, you'll get these slides. So if this graphic is at all helpful, this little flow chart is at all helpful, then you'll have that in the slides. So the link to the calendar then is you have your lists for the day and you put them in your calendar. So you know, whenever you look at your calendar, oh, I need to do this today. Blocking out the work time. It's also really helpful to batch similar activities. So if you have administrative work you need to do, or, like for me, just issuing invoices and things like that. It's like, if I can do them all at once, I get in that flow state of, oh, I'm doing invoices, and yeah, it gets really quick, and I just work through the process. And if you can also think about, when we think about time management, it's really in the concept of, what are the goals? What are the things, important tasks, or the important things you want to accomplish, right? Come back to the goals that you have. And thinking about, if every day you can accomplish one task, even if it's super tiny, but accomplish one task that will move you on the path to accomplishing each of your key goals. Over time, over a week, a month, a quarter, and the year, you are making all of the steps. So you don't suddenly go, oh, it's the last quarter and I haven't even started this big project. You've already started to lay the groundwork. Sometimes it's that all you might be able to manage is, I'm going to open a tab on my computer and I'm going to do a Google search. And tomorrow I'm going to look at the search results. But right now I have 15 seconds. I can get that 15 seconds. And then when I have more time, I'll do more work on that. Okay. So thinking about, how can you integrate your calendar and your plan together so that you're managing your tasks, which is managing time. Key number 4 is focus and avoiding distractions. And so Pete talked about this a little bit last time. Pete shared a quote with me a couple days ago. We can no longer focus on a small number of important projects, but find ourselves instead rushing between an increasingly overwhelming slate of obligations. This time fracture can prevent real accomplishment. Imagine if Einstein maintained a blog, wrote a book, joined a number of clubs, and tried to master rowing at the same time he was working on general relativity. We'd still be living in the age of Newton. So this quote is from Cal Newport. It was like, yes, exactly. Pete talked about, we can only do one thing at a time, or the brain can only physically work on one thing at a time. And if you have too many things on your plate and you're jumping back and forth too often, you're not going to make the progress that you need to make. So in terms of focus and distractions and learning how to better manage your time and be more productive, take some time to track your distractions. You can just have a little piece of paper, or something on your computer or something. Every time when you're working, every time you get distracted. So I started work at 2:00. At 2:05, I got distracted. What was the distraction? Oh, the dog was barking, or someone came by, or my phone started pinging at me. What caused the distraction? And think about, what can you do to overcome the distraction? And I'll be talking more about some of the things you might be able to do. But doing this for a couple of days, 2-3 days at least, of what is distracting me, and spending some time to think about what, how you can overcome that, can help you to move forward in managing accomplishment of tasks and achieving your goals, because that is part of managing your time. So these are some of the distractions. When people work from home, you might get some of them more on the left. We heard a lot about the ones on the right when I asked the question earlier: social media, email, just people and meetings and stuff happening around you. Pete talked last week about some external distractions and how there's research that shows that people switch tasks every 3 minutes. And every time you switch a task, it can take 25 minutes to re-engage back in the task you were doing. This is particularly important when you're doing deep work. If you're really needing to think and someone comes by, hey, I have a question, and you have to get your mind out of one thing and think about what they're talking about and then get back in. So what are some things you can do to control the external distractions that happen? Because you may not be able to eliminate all of them, but control them or eliminate the impact. One thing is the space you work in. Look at the space you're in, and you may not have complete control, but where possible, creating a space that is your work zone. This is when I'm at work, and when I'm outside of this space, I'm not at work. So particularly if you work from home, people know that it's like, okay, mom's in her workspace. We're not supposed to bug her, right? Unless the house is on fire or something like that. It's a true emergency. It's a signal to other people, but it's also a signal to yourself. This is when I'm working. Things like, getting dressed as if you were going to the office, even if you're working from your home office, puts your mind in the mindset of this is when I am working as opposed to doing other things. Okay. So it sends your mind a message, also sends other people a message. I've heard of some people who, even though they work from home, they get up in the morning and they walk around the block to walk to work. And then they come back and they sit at their home office desk. And then at the end of the day, they walk around the block to come home because it creates that separation between work and home for them. Another thing, we talked about this last week, is turning off notifications. So one thing I do for my co-working community is we run work sprints. I do them virtually now. We used to do day-long work sprints. We would get together. And what we do is this is a picture of a physical cell phone cage that we put our phones in. Turn off notifications, we put it in, we turn the key. It's far away. We do work. At break time, at lunch, yes, we can check our phones. But when you're working, making sure you've turned notifications off or your phone is far away so you can focus on the work you need to do, at least for a short time. You're not going to ignore your phone for the entire day. Other things, working on, like I don't have Facebook on my phone because I know if I go to my phone to do something else I need to do on my phone, Facebook might distract me. So I don't have it there. And in the evening, I'll check Facebook and see what people are up to. Another thing is putting up a do not disturb sign or asking people do not disturb. And Pete referred to this, someone on the Next Dimension team, where they said, I need, when I'm doing this kind of work, I can't handle interruptions. People, please not disturb me. Pete was like, well, yeah, go somewhere where no one's going to disturb you, right? And put a sign up. There are ways that you can humorously ask people to not disturb you. But telling people, even if it's 20, 30 minutes, it's like, I just need to focus and get this work done, can really help you to focus and get work done. And most people, it's like you tell them, you put the sign up or whatever, like, oh, yeah, I want to do that too, because I could really use some time when I'm not being interrupted. So using a do not disturb, putting your phone on do not disturb, no distractions. And if you're in a place where there's a lot of people around, talking about and helping to create a culture of it's okay for someone to put up a do not disturb sign, unless there's a true emergency. Obviously, there are times. Stephen King, when he's talking to writers in particular, but I think this can apply to anyone, about how he writes his minimum 3,000 words every day. There should be no telephone in your writing room, no TV or video games, draw the curtains, eliminate every possible distraction. He then goes on to say, I work to loud music. For me, the music is just another way of shutting the door. So figuring out what are the distractions around you, as I said, tracking them, but figuring out how you can create that environment. For some people, like for me, music, I can't focus. When I was in university, I always had music playing. I can't do that anymore. I need quiet to work. So figuring out what works for you can help you to focus. Pete talked about, so that's some of the external stuff. Pete talked about internal distractions. The mind is wired to wander. Every 10 seconds, apparently, you're going to have a random thought. So what can you do about that? Okay, Lori says, for me, because I like music, it's a distraction. I would get into the song. Exactly. So music, for some people, it's going to pull you away from the task. So what can you do to control some of those internal distractions? And Pete talked about this in more depth last time. So, go back, listen to the recording if you need to. But because the brain can only truly work on one thing at a time, you need to be conscious about how you are focusing on only one thing at a time. And what do you do with that information? So giving your brain one role at a time. Pete talks about 5 different roles that the brain has and things that the brain can do. Making sure, training yourself so that, okay, right now I am doing this, and then later I'm going to do that. And another way, if you find that, when I pick up my phone, because I need to use my phone for a valid reason, but I just want to check Facebook for a minute, set a timer. When you're doing something for enjoyment, you're taking a little break so that you don't go down the rabbit hole. If you set a timer, it's like, okay, I'm going to do this for 2 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever you are allowing yourself consciously in order to do something that's taking you away from your work. Because sometimes your brain does need breaks, right? We know you need breaks. Set a timer so you don't spend 30, 60 minutes on Facebook. You suddenly look up and where did the time go? Okay, that helps to keep it under control. Pete talked about free will versus free won't, and how this is a skill that you need to work on and develop, inhibiting those distractions, training your brain so that you catch the impulses. And this is when I talked about taking some time to track them, that is part of the step of training your brain to figure out, okay, how do I avoid those distractions and those wrong impulses? And he gave the example of eating chocolate and the 0.3 of a second in terms of, I want the chocolate, and you have 0.2 of a second to veto that. So with practice, working on that to veto the negative, the unproductive behaviors that you want. And some proactive things you can do when you're sitting down to say, okay, I want to do some work, I need to accomplish some tasks and manage my time, is thinking about, before you sit down, take care of those biological needs, right? Have a snack, have a drink if you're thirsty, make sure you have a snack ready. I have some snacks here at my desk when I'm working so that I don't go, I'm feeling kind of hungry, I'm just going to go grab something. And then 20 minutes later, I sit down. It's like, I have some nuts here. I can eat a few nuts. I can keep working. Go to the washroom before you sit down, etc. So that you have everything. Have any of the tools you need to have around you. If you're going to need pens, pencils, paper, calculator, whatever it is, have those tools around you so that you're ready to sit down. And taking care of yourself is important, because you can't be productive if you don't take care of yourself. So I love this infographic. What I thought would make me productive is 100% hard work. What actually does is the exercise, the healthy eating, the sleep, taking time off, and of course, hard work. So we all know this in our brains, right? It's like, yes, of course, I know I need to get enough sleep, et cetera, et cetera. It's important to find ways to actually build this in, to build those habits. So this goes back to the calendaring, the building in time, scheduling time for yourself in your calendar. Exercise is important. Figuring out what does that look like for you. I don't, this may sound silly, but I hate exercise. I don't like exercise much. But so I build in little things. So when I'm working from home, when I go downstairs to get a cup of tea and I have my break, I will run up and down the stairs 4 or 5 times on my way down. I go run up and down the stairs 4 or 5 times on my way up. So it's not a formal workout, but it increases my heart rate a little bit. It's getting me moving. It's not as good as, 45 minutes on a step machine, but it's better than nothing at all. And it does get my blood flowing. It keeps me awake. So what are some little things you can do to help you build exercise in, help you to eat more healthily, help you get enough sleep? I was trying to establish a new, making sure I got to bed on time. So what I was doing was I was setting an alarm for 30 minutes before bedtime. And when the alarm went off, I had, like 10 to 15 minutes max to kind of finish up what I was doing. And then it's like, okay, go, brush my teeth, do all the things you do before you go to bed to get to bed on time. I had to set the alarm for probably about 2 to 3 months, and then it became automatic. I knew I needed to be in bed at a certain time, and so my brain knew that, half an hour before that, close the book, switch off the TV, whatever I'm doing. I've got a couple minutes, just kind of wind it up and move on. So thinking about how do I help myself make sure I'm getting these things into my schedule, because this all flows to being more productive, managing your time, and accomplishing your goals. Okay. Let's talk a bit about procrastination. Pretty much everyone I meet says that at some time in their life they have procrastinated. So one thing is when you have a big task, it's like, oh, I don't want to do that, is thinking about a salami slicing approach is what I call it. It's breaking it down into little pieces. So don't think about the huge project, but think about this is the tiny piece I can do today. Like I said, sometimes it might just be open a tab on your browser and do the Google search. And the next day it's look through the search results and, investigate the top 2 or 3. Taking just a tiny piece can get you in the started the task. And quite often what happens is, now I'm started, I'll keep going. And so another approach, similar idea, the way it can work on the brain is say, I'm only going to work on this for 15 minutes. Set a timer. If I can do 15 minutes on this, I will be happy. So 15 minutes, quite often what happens is, I'll keep going. And you can keep going because you realize that once you're into it, it's not a problem to keep going because you're into that flow state doing your work. And another thing is, when you've got things you don't want to do, reward yourself when you've done them. Have a little celebration. Give yourself a pat on the back. Sometimes, it can be just the literally you pat yourself on the back, might be a little reward. Think about what are the rewards that are going to be meaningful for you in order to accomplish the tasks that you need to accomplish. For some people, it's sweet treats. For some people, it's a walk around the block. Some people, it's listen to my favorite song for 5 or 10 minutes. What are those things? Because what you want to do, excuse me, as you accomplish tasks and you reward yourself, task accomplishment by itself is already a bit of a reward. You feel good when you get something done. It releases endorphins in the brain. The reward releases endorphins in the brain. And that encourages you to do more tasks and get more done. So I said 3 tactics for avoiding procrastination. I have a bonus tactic. This is called Eat That Frog. There's a quote. Some people say Mark Twain said it. Other people have taken credit as well. Something along the lines of, if you eat a live frog first thing every morning, the rest of the day will be easy. Everything else you have to do in the day will be relatively easy compared to eating a live frog. So the concept applied to accomplishing tasks and managing your time is, What is the worst task you have to do that day? The thing you least want to do? Get it done first thing so you can cross it off and you're going to feel good at, yay, I got that done. Oh, now everything else, I'm feeling good because I got that awful task done. Everything else is going to be easy and you can work through and get those done. And part two of this is if you have two frogs you have to eat on a given day, eat the uglier frog first and then move to the less ugly frog. Okay. I don't actually encourage you to go out and eat frogs unless you like frog's legs, but not telling you to do that. But think about it in terms of tasks. And I know people who, if part of their job is cold calling and sales, they do the cold calling. First thing, they sit down at their desk, they do however many cold calls they need to do in the day. Because once those calls are done, they can relax, and not relax in terms of not doing any work, but everything is by comparison is relatively relaxing. Okay. So I want you to take this as the final question, then we'll open up for discussion and questions and things. What is the most important task on your list, and when will you do it? So this is I want you to take some action. Take 30 seconds. What is the most important task? Because time management is, as I said, it's task management. It's managing yourself. It's managing time, quote unquote, so you can get things done. Make a commitment to yourself when you are going to do it. Put it in your calendar that you're going to do that. Okay. And just to make sure you are coming back in January, Pete is going to talk about attention and when the brain gets stuck, and some strategies for when your brain is stuck. And I will be flowing that into problem solving and how you can have more eureka moments at work with some problem solving strategies.